for us to talk about. Here we go. What the hell? Where'd you go away? Oh, there it is. Okay, so here we go. First Week Podcast coming to you July 15th, 2021. Holy shit, Marc Francois. It's been 6 months.
We didn't have. We still had. We were still living under the reign of the 45th president.
No. We did a pod after the inauguration, I believe.
Okay, I thought it was after.
No. I'll tell you right now. No, I'll tell you right now. Keep talking. I'll tell you now. I'm looking.
It's been a good long minute.
No, it's too long. It's too long. It's kind of my fault. Okay, the last podcast we did was actually a week after the inauguration because we actually did a little, first week administration, post-Trump.
That's what it was. That's what it was.
And we did a Kobe tribute 1 year after.
That's right.
January 28th. It's really my fault because obviously, like, every 4 years, you've been part of this family, this podcast now for almost a decade. I mean,
years?
Long 9 because this podcast
right?
This podcast turns 10 next month. Okay,
yeah,
10 years, and you came in my life.
It was 2012 when I was banging out articles for the Opinionation with you guys.
That's right, the good old days, man. No, but we every 4 years, especially with the election, we tend to ramp up podcasts surrounding politics and all that, and as I told you off the record, like I did get burnt out after the election, and when you had the insurrection happen and the January 6th situation plus everything else, one of the things I keep saying about, look, I don't know how people feel about Joe Biden in general and politically speaking, but all I know is for the last 6 months, it has been very relaxing to know there's no chaos in Washington, D.C. That's all I know. I know for the first time in 4 years, I have not checked my phone every fucking 10 minutes to see what's going on. What did Trump say today? And that in itself is a good mental health.
Who are we going to war with today? Who's ending their diplomatic relationship with us today?
Exactly. And that's the thing. So I got burnt out. So I kind of sort of like, not on purpose, but and plus of schedules conflicts too. You do a lot of traveling and a lot of activism too, especially, which I'm very proud of you, what you're doing, So, but dude, we've been talking about last couple of weeks. We're trying to get back on the pod. And I'm like, today, it's like, you know what? There's no better time than today to do this. Let's get it going.
Let's get it going, man.
Then I gotta see a fucking background with LA Dodgers bullshit.
I know you got. Let's see what we have here. We got the two pennants up there. We got the I think that was just a generic one from a game, and then the 2017 winning the pennant, and then there's Kareem, Coach, and Bill Walton. We got Vinny's letter to the fans.
I'm okay with Magic.
Magic. Well, this is Magic and Bird.
That's right.
Signed. And then we got the LA Skyline piece. And then off here, you can't see this. I've got my bookshelf with my Kobe jersey, my Worthy ball, my Dwight Howard ball, my Magic ball, Griffey, Mookie. Oh, here's a fun one that you'll like.
Okay.
You will actually like this one. It's not like shitty Dodgers or Lakers stuff. But this was a little toy that I picked up thanks to Darren Ravel's Instagram.
Oh, really?
There is a company that makes historic replica baseballs.
Okay.
And they did a special edition of the Babe Ruth ball that the Beast got from the Sandlot.
Oh.
So it's a replica of
for the movie and shit?
What's that?
From the movie or something? Or from
yeah. So it's a replica of the ball that Smalls belted into the Beast's domain. And the chase and got all tore up and everything that they traded for the Murderer's Row ball and all that stuff.
By the way, that movie's on Disney Plus now, right?
I believe it is. Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, it was part of the 20th Century Fox IP haul.
Okay.
So when they got all the Fox IP, they got the Sandlot with that because Fox. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Sandlot was 20th Century.
Yeah, because I've been trying to watch that for a while now, and I remember when I first got Disney Plus and they had Sandlot 2, which I don't really care to see. I'm like, well, and it said at some point it'll come here. We don't know when's gonna come, and I heard it. I think I heard it came, but I didn't really like.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things like when Disney launched Disney Plus, they had a bunch of like lingering licensing agreements they were waiting to expire. Where say like Sandlot was on Netflix, and they couldn't put it on Disney Plus until the Netflix agreement expired.
Right. So. Like okay.
Have you watched that with the boys yet? You have not sat down and watched.
Not yet. I will at some point though. I will. My oldest son Eli, he's actually starting to get into baseball. Like he's like starting to want to play it. In other words, so.
Oh,
Maybe
nothing
that's
will make him fall in love with baseball like that movie.
yeah. I think I'm gonna do it. That and Angels in the
Although
Outfield.
I learned something that kind of broke my heart.
Was that?
It's great that their location scouts are genius, but I found out a friend of mine. It turns out was one of the extras in the movie as a kid. He was on the shitty all star like uniform team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was one of those kids.
Oh
And
wow.
I believe he might have been in the opening sequence too, at the opening credits when when they're playing on like the last day of school or whatever.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But anyway, he told me they actually all the neighborhood scenes and the park itself and like the main street where the drugstore was and stuff was in fact not the San Fernando Valley, but a town in Utah that was more or less still trapped in the 60s that was built around the same time as a lot of the stuff in the valley. So it looked like Ventura Boulevard 1964,
But it really wasn't.
but it was in fact filmed in Utah.
I hate hearing shit like that, man. Like, God, what's a fraud?
Oh,
Uh.
oh. And there's parts of the valley you can do it too, but yeah, I was like, damn, really?
So it's been 6 months. What the fuck you been doing?
A lot. So I'm gonna have to make a couple of shameless plugs right out of the gate. I am now the director of policy and partnerships for an organization called the Haitian American Caucus.
Wow.
It's you and I have talked in the past about my trips to Haiti and the school that I work with there. HAC is the organization that administrates the school. So we have HAC Global, which is our school in Haiti. And then, or excuse me, we have HAC Haiti and HAC Global. HAC
Right.
Global is primarily anchored in providing services for the diaspora domestically, mostly around New York. But one of my hopes and goals for joining the organization is to try to expand that footprint to LA and Miami as well. So we got a number of different initiatives running in addition to working with roughly 400 to 600 at any given time of Quite a Bouquet, which is a town near Port-au-Prince, on sort of on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince. Um, Working with some of the most at-risk kids there. About 40% of the kids that we work with are orphans. We provide meals and education, K through 12, as well as ongoing education for adults, English language stuff, job training stuff. So it's a really special organization to be a part of. It's a group I've worked with for 4 or 5 years now, and so I've been kind of like lobbing referrals and introductions over the fence to them through my own private network for a while, and then kind of started talking with the leadership and here we are. So what I do is manage our corporate partnerships, try to seek out new ones, develop new fundraising initiatives and programs for outreach, as well as working on the policy side. So we work with elected officials on advising on both policy that affects Haitian Americans as well as foreign policy and how we'd like in diplomacy issues and how we'd like to see them move in Haiti. So I get to be hands-on with all of that, working with elected officials from the state, from this local to the federal level, State Department, all that exciting stuff. So
There's a lot of that.
it's trying to pursue my dream of not making rich guys richer in the service industry, but making a living, trying to give Haiti self-determination, tear down white
But you're still
supremacy.
doing that though. You're still doing the hotel work, right?
Technically, yeah. Unfortunately, the pandemic ravaged my business. So that is something I am doing more part-time
Okay.
as we're sort of trying to lick our wounds and get back on our feet, restructure, and take a second shot at that. So my focus right now is on Haiti and on my activism, and the two kind
Right.
of go hand in hand. So, obviously I work with a bunch of people who understand and agree with the things that I do locally here in LA with, say, their names LA,
Hmm.
the local volunteer-driven support group that was started by Laura Peterson here in LA, that protest graveyard that I did back in October. So everything that we're doing for the families and that I'm doing locally in activism about police violence and abolition and reform and what defunding, whatever you want to call it here in LA, goes hand in hand with what I'm doing in Haiti too. So it's
Okay.
really exciting to be able to make my passion my profession and have my extracurricular activities directly coincide with what I'm doing, 9 to 5.
So you're trying to get a corporate America now. You're trying to stiff on corporate America these days.
Yeah, that's the idea. Take all these skills that I was able to acquire because of my privilege and the access that I've been able to foster, and use it to tear down the systems of white supremacy and capitalism that are holding people back. And people talk about making America great again. It was never great. Like,
Right.
no, 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 no.
Yeah,
It was great
I get into
for
that
very
too.
lots of people.
Yeah, I get to a lot of that. Like I had this thing on 4th of July. We were talking about I was talking about my weekend and all that, and this idea that why does it have to be either or? Why does either you love this country and everything is correct, or you're just a piece of shit and da da da. I don't understand that logic. I never will understand that logic. Like
Yeah,
what makes
I
this
mean,
country great is the flaws, dude.
I have a lot of leftist friends who don't appreciate seeing the stars and stripes, especially because of the way in the last 5 years, the way it, like the Confederate flag or a Blue Lives Matter flag or anything else, has been weaponized by people and used as a tool of intimidation and making you less than. So I
Right.
understand that. But as I tell a lot of my friends too, I have a complicated relationship with the flag and sort of with America broadly. And I'm learning and growing in that, and a lot of my views are changing. I'm not quick to just jump on the side of, oh yeah, no,
And for people who don't know about
I
you,
hate
you
America.
come from a conservative background.
Yeah, I was a Republican until 5 years ago,
Dude,
technically.
we met and we were literally having discussions about Romney and Obama. I remember 2012. We were having arguments about that stuff back then.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you start reading books and understanding history. Because I have spent, especially the pandemic, but the seed was planted long before that. I've been really digging into, I've talked about this on a couple pods with you and privately, the history of revolutions and sort of like the real history of the West, going back to the Crusades and how that gave way to the Renaissance, and how, sort of capitalism was born, modern capitalism was born in the Renaissance, and how that
Right.
drove colonialism, and how white supremacy was a tool of that, and how that grew from that. So I've been studying a number of different things, and the thing that has been the most consistent in appalling to me is the consistency of the oppression in the through lines of exactly how little has changed. Whether it was Columbus or the Triangle Trade, or post Triangle Trade, the way that slavery was industrialized in the U.S., to the prison industrial complex. It's all the same. The tools are largely the same. The names change, but you go back and you listen to, or you read like transcripts of Congress, going back into the 19th century and stuff, and they're saying the same crap they are now. It's just that they're defending slavery or Jim Crow or lynching or whatever terrible thing Woodrow Wilson or Andrew
Right.
Jackson was talking about. Um, so, and then with Haiti, it's sort of the worst set of outcomes, the most unbridled sort of oppression and capitalism run wild. And it's like when, you look at all the benefits of America, Canada, Great Britain, France, um, the the compost heap of all of that quote unquote greatness, technology advancement, is Haiti, Cuba, Venezuela,
Right.
Guatemala, Nicaragua, Colombia, all these places, Palestine, and you see that the struggle in all these places is exactly the same, and the same forces that are doing the oppression in all these different places, whether they're killing people or arresting people, they've all been coalescing. The School of the Americas in South America, where Pinochet and all of those like humans learned their tactics and
Right.
techniques, trained by Americans. You've got the Israeli, the IDF, and the American Department of Defense and Intelligence Complex working together for 60 years now. So you look at all these common through lines of shared tactics, and it's just, as folks who've been around for a long time say, the more things change, the more they stay the same, and that's
Yeah.
really what drives me, is kind of making it so people can't say that anymore.
Speaking of Haiti, the assassination of the president last week. I mean, I mean, I'm trying to follow it, but the Cuban news is overtaking it pretty much quickly here in South Florida. But
As far
quickly
as
on the
like local, oh,
huh?
yeah. I said as far as like local news
Right,
goes and
absolutely,
stuff.
yeah. Because I mean, Haiti and Cuba, two of the biggest like communities
Sure,
here. That's you hear anything about Haiti or Cuba, Florida's getting directly affected immediately.
sure.
What is the I'm trying to follow the story a little bit, but what is the backdrop on that? Because there's obviously connections to Florida and people who live in this state and
Sure,
possible
sure.
government stuff. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So I'll try to not turn this into a separate podcast about the history of Haiti for the last 300 years.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in short, the current president Jovenel Moise was elected in 2017 under questionable circumstances.
Right.
The election was less than rock solid. Nevertheless, something occurred, and I don't remember the specifics, but something occurred whereby he was delayed in his presidency, or his presidency was in. It was either his inauguration was delayed or his presidency was interrupted for
Right.
like a year. And the same thing happened to Jean-Bertrand Aristide
Right.
in the 90s. And what was notable about this is that Moise decided, well, since my presidency was interrupted for a year, I'm not going to leave office as constitutionally prescribed in February of 2021. I'm going to give myself that extra year. Jean-Bertrand Aristide tried the same thing when he was reinstalled as president in the 90s after being overthrown, and was not given the support of the State Department and other diplomatic
He got overthrown,
interests.
didn't he?
He got overthrown and
Right.
reinstalled. And so when he was reinstalled, he basically tried the same thing, and the US and other diplomats around the world said, yeah, we're not going to back you for that. Moise attempted, or did what Aristide attempted, and despite outrage, protests in the street, and much, much more, um, his claims of presidential extension were not met by any resistance from the U.S., including Biden, Harris, and I can't think of the current Secretary of State right now.
Shoot. What's his name? But go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, the United States Diplomatic Corps, the State Department, and the President have been completely silent on this issue until President Moise was killed.
Right.
So when to kind of so you had civil unrest, you had protests, you had COVID running wild, you had not one vaccine administered anywhere in Haiti, you had the president saying really problematic things about vaccines for really understandable reasons because of historical Western intervention and interference in Haiti. Now people in Haiti are naturally suspicious.
Of course.
Not unlike how the Tuskegee experiments can absolutely contribute to why, say, members of the Black community would be hesitant to take vaccines. That all that same shit, all that same mistrust exists in Haiti that does in the United States. So you're in a situation. It was interesting actually because the morning that we all found out President Moise had been killed, my phone was blowing up with people that know I work with Haiti but don't necessarily know what's going on in Haiti, and they're like, "What the hell is this? What does this mean? Explain this to me." And like, "Are you shocked? Are you going crazy?" And I was like, "Nah, kind of surprised it didn't happen a while ago." Because
Mm.
like anybody who was watching, like it was one of those unfortunate things where it was kind of only a matter of time when you look at sort of the previous course of Haitian history
Right.
and how badly the situation in the country was devolving. So now, the latest news that came out today, the story everyone's been talking about is that, there was this team of 26 people, overwhelmingly, Colombian mercenaries, which is important to understand. Colombian mercenaries is like the Wish version of hiring former Navy SEALs,
Mm-hmm.
like to kind of make it crude. the Colombian military, their death squads, the people that are murdering their protesters in the street right now, were all trained by Americans. They were all given American handbooks in counterinsurgency. All their leaders went to the School of the Americas in Panama and then eventually Fort Benning, where they learned from the CIA, the Border Patrol, the DEA, and the DoD how to quell insurgency and how to shut down leftist uprising. So, these guys, like I said, they're wish Navy SEALs. So a team was assembled, and the president was killed. And it seems that the latest news is that Claude Joseph, the prime minister of Haiti, is emerging as the suspected mastermind of this whole plot, which is a whole other kind of problematic. Because,
Right.
at the end of the day, what you're left with is a country that has suffered from deliberate and ongoing economic and global logistical choking from the quote unquote developed world, the first world, whatever. And you have, as a result, a country that is perpetually led by corrupt leaders on all sides of the political spectrum. And it just kind of it bounces back and forth from one set of corrupt bureaucrats to another, who get installed by another. They get installed by the Americans or by whoever,
Right.
and then the person pisses off somebody else, and they get themselves killed. And this thing just repeats itself over and over and over again. And then what you're left with is a situation where the millions of people who live in Haiti are the victims of this. They have crumbling roads. They have no infrastructure. They have no meaningful health care. They have food insecurity. Literally everyone in Haiti, in a lot of respects, is sick and dying. And it's a direct result of, when you think about walking around the streets of Paris, and all the beautiful statues and l'Arc de Triomphe and Champs-Élysées and the Eiffel Tower and all these things. A lot of the beautification projects in Paris were directly funded by reparation payments from Haiti that did not stop until 1915, when American banks simply refinanced and bought the debt from the French. So,
Really?
yes, Haiti was
Wow.
the only successful slave revolt in modern human history. They massacred and expelled their French masters, overseers, whatever. France sued Haiti for reparations of their freedom, and were backed by the Americans and by the British, because the Americans didn't want to get, they didn't want the War of 1812 to, boil back up and have the British at their door now with French support, because, and Napoleon, because they had been beat back by, or no, actually Napoleon, I think, might have already been out by the time the reparation shit started. But anyway, from about 1811 until 1915, Haiti was making active reparations payments to the French for their own liberation. And those reparations were used directly to finance beautification projects around Paris. So when you go around and you look at all these statues and beautiful walkways and lovely landscaped, whatever, it's quite literally paid for in Haitian blood.
That's very obviously sad, but very fascinating and shocking to hear. Well, I should say shocking. This is history. A lot of the history of this country is so ugly. And then you have not just the Haitian situation now. I don't know if you're following this stuff here now, but the Cuban unrest now, after 60 something years, the people are rising up and trying to, I don't know. I don't know if the word overthrowing the government is actually apropos, but they're definitely trying to, end the oppression there.
I don't think it's as binary as like overthrowing the government, communist, capitalist, Democrat, whatever. Democrat, small d Democratic, not political
Right.
party.
Right.
But it's more just that I think around the world we have reached a point where wealth concentration is at a place where it is now significantly worse than in the Gilded Age. People are poor, sick, hungry, dying, and tired of getting their fucking heads kicked in and shot by
Some
police.
places worse than others, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
Cuba
okay,
being
you have a
one,
very
Haiti.
broad spectrum of this, but whether you're talking about, again, like I was listing before, I was listing off all these countries where civil, India, Palestine, the United States, Colombia, Cuba, all these places, it's the same thing. People are poor, hungry, sick, unemployed, unhoused, dying, and fucking billionaires are building spaceships. I hope Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson all blow the fuck up on their way to the moon.
Oof.
No, I'm sorry, that's terrible. But there's a part of me that kind of feels that. No, but there is a part of me that, in a dark, morbid way, kind of feels that way, because I look around LA and I see roughly 100,000 people on the street, dying, being over policed, getting the shit kicked out of them, getting swept away like trash so we can make space for the Olympics in 8 years. It's disgusting, the dehumanization that takes
Yeah.
place. And the simple truth is that it is cheaper to feed, house, give health care to, and even if necessary, give heroin to, as countries like Denmark and I believe the Netherlands have shown. It is cheaper to give people all of their basic needs, including narcotics, than it is to incarcerate and kill them, because police are extremely expensive and extremely inefficient. But you have people who profit off of
Especially
this,
when you militarize it.
especially when you militarize it. And what's happened since, 2011, where whatever, when the Defense Department was allowed to start decommissioning? Why do you have tiny, little municipal police departments like Huntington Beach PD running out with riot squads that look like 2 battalions of occupying Marines in full, heavy body armor, 37
Right.
millimeter grenade launchers, ballistic helmets, huh? For
And the
Surf
problem,
City, USA, you have 2 small battalions of Marines that you call police. Get the fuck out of here.
right. And the problem is too also like you can't even have a nuanced discussion about that because if you're like even out of step with the police to say, well, let's try this, let's do this, let's defund or not defund, at least acquiesce the right people to the right places, you're now anti-police. I'm so sick of the all or nothing nature we're at
Yeah,
now. It's so
okay, now,
disgusting now.
I'm going to preface this by saying I am an abolitionist. I am a very hardcore leftist, and I do believe in.
Every year you get more and more left, 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 left.
I know
I've
it's,
lost
well,
you.
you know
Like you're
what,
like way
man.
out here
Honestly,
now.
the simple truth of it is, it's really easy to sit there and listen to podcasts and pontificate and sympathize and have all these centrist, sort of nuanced opinions, whatever.
Guilty
But
as
the
charged.
simple
I'm not gonna
truth
lie to you.
is,
I'm guilty of that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm
last
guilty of that.
last year I got so mad I couldn't take it anymore. I got so appalled I couldn't take it anymore. And when I started going out there and frankly meeting more black and brown people, meeting more indigenous people, meeting just a much more diverse coalition of people, watching, I personally know a dozen different families whose loved ones were killed in the midst of a mental health crisis by LAPD or LA County Sheriff. I've been out there and watched my friends shot and shoved and hit with billy clubs, and I watched them protect white supremacists who are armed with knives and batons and bear mace and guns and God knows what. I watched them protect Nazis. I watched them beat up black people, beat up women, beat up trans people. It's once you see it, you just can't unsee it. And I don't care if you want to call me a leftist or a communist or a democratic socialist or whatever fucking ism or ist it is.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, I see things taking place. And as a
And your
white,
eyes don't lie, man.
yeah, as a white, it's now, for me, it is becoming lived experience. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm oppressed by police because I went and stood in front of them and basically dared them to hit me. No. But the fact that they are just today, I was down in Lamert Park driving around, and it's a nice suburb in South LA. It's a large, there's parts of Lamert Park where the famed jungle from Training Day is, But, other parts of Leimert Park are, beautiful suburbs with, thriving, it's a thriving Black community in a lot of ways. But one of the things I noticed is I was driving down a street where the homes were a little older, but they were beautiful. They were typical LA homes, and nothing about it was indistinguishable from, say, the suburb of LA where I live, except for the fact that every 10 seconds I saw an LAPD cruiser.
Right.
Like, it's stuff like that. And the
It's
constant
hard to
presence.
argue that with you because you're actually on the battlefield. You're not sitting there on the computer like fucking spewing out my opinions and just let it be. You're actually out there on the streets, touching actual people, actually having skin, literally speaking in the game, and I respect
I
that,
mean,
man. That's
I'm
why.
not gonna go into specific actions that I was at because I believe in as we call it in the community
Right,
OPSEC, but I can
right.
speak to specific anecdotes that I assure you are firsthand experiences. I've watched police hit 60-year-old women with billy clubs whose son that same police division killed. I've had to treat Black veterans who have been shot by foam batons while doing nothing, while the LAPD is under a restraining order not to do that unless there is a direct threat posed to them. Us screaming at them does not legally constitute a direct threat. And I've personally treated and cleaned the wounds of, rubber bullets and beanbags. And just so you know, I'm a shooter too. Beanbags are not what you think they are. It is a 12 gauge shotgun with a few parts of it painted green. And it is your regular 12 gauge bird shot. And the only difference is that instead of getting the raw pellets, there's a loose little Kevlar bag that the same birdshot pellets that are used to kill ducks are in. And for example, when they say shoot at you when you're standing next to there's a chain link fence between you and the officer firing. What do you think happens to the beanbag when it makes contact with a chain link fence? It shreds. And now we're exposed to, it has obviously slowed down, but it's bird shot, squirrel shot, whatever you want to call it. Like, they're little metal balls that will, at close range, blow a hole in you 14 inches wide.
Right.
So, yeah, I fuck the cops. Like, call me soft on crime all fucking day. Like, fuck the police every day. ACAB. Like, because I literally watch these people. It's one of those things that, like, when we say ACAB, all cops are bastards, all cops are bad, all cops are bitches, whatever you want to say. It's not that we believe every individual human who wears a badge is a bad person inherently. But there's no good cops in a racist system, as we chant. And when police officers can't report fellow officers for criminal behavior for fear of retaliation, such as not getting back up, or say active retaliatory tactics like transfers, demotions, terminations, suspensions,
Right.
or worse, assaults, you have, the playbook for police unions nationally was literally written by the Portland Police Bureau's lawyers. And at the time, I'm pretty sure their commissioner, they've had numerous, but their commissioner at the time that handbook was written was an unapologetic Klansman. So, and
Yeah.
that's the platform from which all police unions are
I
built.
mean, we just had a cop in our area in South Florida just got prison to 12 years for planting drugs at traffic stops. I mean, like I said, just
We
the
can,
my
and like you can go on YouTube and go cop caught planting drugs, and you will find a fucking library of these dumbasses in front of their own dash cams pulling bags of cocaine out of their pocket, trying to slip it into people's trunks while their partner's cuffing a guy. Like, the police have always been built to do two things: protect property, control Black people. That hasn't
or
changed.
minorities in general, not just black, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Right.
I'm speaking specifically to America and the South, slave
Right.
patrols, all of that, and
Right.
then immediately the very same slave patrols just being handed new badges one day when slavery, when reunification was taking place, and their badges literally went from slave patrol to sheriff, but all the same people were doing the job.
And that's not necessarily a political issue. That's not a left-right issue. That's just a
It's a
systematic
historical
issue.
fact.
Right.
Police were created to control black bodies and beat the fuck out of people who would either steal from elites or like merchants in the North or dare organize for labor rights.
Right.
Police were formalized to kick the shit out of union organizers. And you got to understand too, when I say like, black and brown bodies, there's a whole bunch of people who are now seen as white who we got to remember were not seen as white. And I'm not making the whole Irish were the first slaves argument. No. I'm just saying that the system saw Irish and Italians and other immigrants, Jews, Polish, Russians as not white, less than, not American, dangerous classes.
Right.
And that has evolved over time to where it is much more specifically tied to color. But the police were designed to control and stop these groups from getting what they want and to stop from wrestling power away from those in control and with those with disproportionate wealth, and that has not changed.
Right.
When we go marching down the street through the Grove in Hollywood, guess what they're doing? They're standing in front of Michael Kors, protecting them from us. Like, we're just marching, y'all.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. Like, so yeah, I've become a little more entrenched in my resistance and my revolutionary spirit because I've literally witnessed the tip of the spear being driven into the oppressed communities.
In our 9 years of being friends,
my fucking face.
It's just funny. In our 9 years of being friends, you've gone from being right of me to far left of me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just moved all the way down that spectrum.
He says, "How you doing? I'm going this way. Goodbye." What's that?
I left the suburbs for good in the summer of 2011. I shortly thereafter, like within months, I connected with Jabari on Facebook, and then I started having, I started having a more and more diverse group of friends and having difficult conversations with. You remember JR the Boss Man and the Boss Man show?
Who the fuck's that guy?
I am still friends with one of his friends and regular guests, Mike Thompson. And Mike is an incredibly brilliant human on history and in a number of topics. And so I've been having difficult conversations with him about the Black experience for going on a decade now. And so that got me reading, and that got me learning and learning the truth about Malcolm X.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you in 2012. Like you were definitely, even though you were still on the conservative end of things, you were definitely open to learning about the Black experience and what we've gone through. I remember that time we were at the barbecue at Jabari's house, and you were literally soaking in all the stories about all the stuff that Jabari went through dealing with the police and other things of that nature and whatnot. Jameson as well, to Jameson Welsh, also same thing. And I remember I didn't have anything to share. I haven't had much run into the police, really, to be honest with you. But
luckily for you, you didn't live in the catchment zones of LAPD or LA County Sheriff.
Right. Well, don't be wrong. I not like I lived I didn't live in a ghetto, but I also didn't live in a freaking suburbs either.
They cover suburbs too. I just mean that LAPD and LASD are particularly violent
departments.
We know. And at the time we grew up, it was even worse than it is now.
We know LAPD is definitely problematic and have a lot of issues for decades. So, real quick, long topic here. It's been 6 months. Joe Biden's president. Although we keep hearing that Donald Trump will be placed in it. Like whatever, dude. Like it's
a quick sidebar.
Go ahead.
My mom recently attended a drag race in Bakersfield, California, and that's a well-known area to people outside of California as being particularly ding 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 ding. And sure enough, at the races there were not one but numerous Trump 2024 swag tents set up, selling all variety of shirts and MAGA gear.
Well, let's go there real quick. Let's get into a little political half a couple minutes because I texted you today. Remember
I like bouncing around.
Well, so no. So remember, so I told you. Remember, I've been telling you that I kind of turned the volume down a little bit in politics now. But did I text you this afternoon? I don't know if you got that, saying that I was listening to the Bulwark again for the first time in a while.
Oh yeah, no, we were talking logistics, and I just breezed right over that.
Yeah.
I totally forgot to respond to that.
So
where are you in sort of the zeitgeist?
I'm just saying I'm kind of inching back into some of the day-to-day stuff a little bit. It's just because I kind of miss it. But
the Washington mudslinging.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously, like I said,
I have one I'm completely ignorant to, just a sidebar, but you'll probably know this. Is Rick Wilson back on the Daily Beast podcast?
I don't think so. No. And honestly, I haven't listened to that show since he's been gone. Because
I like Molly and I like the producer, but I miss the vibe of like Rick being.
I have to check now.
And Molly constantly having to be like, the sponsors are gonna kill us.
Yeah, Rick Wilson's reason. Nothing against Molly, because I love Molly's commentary and I love her writing too, especially. But
yeah,
Rick Wilson's the reason I listened to the show. Rick Wilson was the entertainment, if you will. So I don't know if he's been.
And this makes no comment whatsoever on what happened at the Lincoln Project or any of that. Rick Wilson is what kind of I think pulled his boat, and he's fine. He was a hilarious Trump troll.
I mean, I guess the whole thing is more about the optics, but at the same time, if he has nothing to do with that, then why are we judging him on that? This is what liberals get it wrong a lot of times. Like they play that shit. He has nothing to do with that. We all have individual choices. I can't be responsible for every single Yeah, exactly. Money. Yeah.
No. Oh no. I was snapping in agreement like a beatnik.
Oh yeah. Like that. Yeah. So the people.
That wasn't money. No. But no. I mean, it's just that it's sensationalism, tribalism. We live in a world where it's constantly like torches and pitchforks, digitally speaking. Like it's never ending. Sorry, no. I had a little piece of tape on here. It was driving me nuts.
No. So so my question, my original question was this though: was 6 months in Joe Biden administration? Where are you at?
Frustrated. Not enough's happening. We were talking about this ahead of time, that he needed to not pull all of this centrist crap and sit there and bipartisan this. Like he needed to get in there and like in a legal, appropriate way, of course, like not just doing it with a flurry of executive orders, but I mean to say, like, cram some shit through and start getting some stuff done, and he hasn't. And where I'm particularly upset is on the issue of kids in cages.
Yeah.
We have fucking concentration camps on our border.
See,
Children are being housed in the LA convention, or not LA, Long Beach Convention Center, Pomona Fairplex, which was a Japanese internment camp before it was a fair complex.
Right.
Like, we have children being separated with no prospect of being able to reunite them with their parents because their parents have been deported or won't claim them for fear of their own safety in their own country. Like, there's situations where, like, kids came to the border unaccompanied, and they're from Honduras or something like that. They're a 12-year-old girl. Their parents won't claim them as their child, won't confirm that they're their child, because they know that coming back to Honduras or Ecuador or El Salvador or wherever it is they're from is a express ticket into gang oppression, murder, poverty, whatever. And the president has done, Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, has kind of like thrown his hands up saying, oh, well, ICE was just allowed to run rampant and all oversight has been completely dissolved. Well, we're 6 months in, bruh. Where you at? Like, what are you doing? What have you done to rein?
And this is the difference
between. The answer is nothing. And even Kamala Harris is changing her tune. They're all changing their tune from the campaign to being fucking bootlickers and cops.
And this is the difference between a lot of conservatives who are cult-like in the way they look at things and progressives. They hold their own accountable. My stepmother is
just
a
you're on
major
the team
progressive.
Doesn't mean you're immune from me yelling at you for
right.
fucking.
I asked my stepmother last month, who's a major progressive, okay, political theorist. She knows everything about politics. And I asked her, and she voted with Joe Biden. I asked her, what letter grade would you give Joe Biden? He goes, a C. I see.
I'd give him a D.
You give him a D?
Yeah.
Wow.
You got the COVID relief bill. What the fuck else have you done?
That's
You've
pretty
done
cool.
nothing for healthcare. You've done nothing to advance the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act through the Senate. You've done nothing on immigration. You've done nothing or next to nothing on student debt. You've
Could
done
it
nothing.
be argued though that because of the situation with the filibuster and situation with the Senate, it's really just a tiebreaker, really, and you have
Figure it the
two
fuck
Democrats.
out. You're the smartest minds in politics. You're the greatest deliberative body in the world. Figure it the fuck out. People are dying.
No,
We got
I agree with
5,000
you.
people almost on the streets in LA that are getting treated like fucking poop in a scoop. Like in Los Angeles, we have this really nefarious tactic that people like City Councilman Mitch O'Farrell and Mike Bonin and LA Police Chief Michael Moore and Sheriff Villanueva. I use their names on purpose. I hope they Google this and fucking find me saying this shit about them because they're just. No, I'm serious. They are disgusting human beings in the way that they dehumanize the unhoused community in Los Angeles. For 100 years, Skid Row has been the dustbin of Los Angeles. Whenever the Olympics want to come to town, like they did in 1918 or the 50s or the 80s, or like we're seeing right now in 2021 in preparation for the 2028 Olympics, they take all they mass arrest and sweep Skid Row, and then they go around the city and they round up all the undesirables that they don't like, and they either incarcerate them, kill them, or move them into Skid Row. And that cycle has been repeated over and over and over again since the 1920s in LA.
Right.
And it's happening in real time on the Venice Boardwalk in Venice Beach because the you've got hundreds of homeless people living all around the Venice Boardwalk because there is no housing, there's no healthcare, there's no food, there's no jobs, there's no protections. And they're being swept out with bulldozers and police batons. And instead of making housing available, they've made 2,000 jail beds available at a facility that's supposed to be shut down, the Twin Towers Correctional Facility. Is it Twin Towers or Men's Central Jail that was supposed to have been closed already? I get it mixed up. I could be wrong. Don't fact check me on that, please.
Don't fact check me
on Twitter at Francois. But no, it's really, really, really inhuman what happened, and it keeps happening. And going back to the question about the president, they're not doing anything about it. They're not doing anything to fix Trump's tax bill that is now actively 2021. When you pay your 21 taxes next year, you're going to get screwed if you don't make at least $450,000 a year because Trump fucked you. So, and Biden is doing nothing to repair.
Does it expire? Wait, it's 6 years or 8 years?
All the protections end with the 2020 tax year. So the taxes you just filed a few months ago,
right,
were the last time you got anything from President Trump and the last time you're going to into perpetuity, because only rich people had lifetime protections under the Trump tax plan.
Which we discussed in this podcast 5 years ago.
Yeah, we've been literally discussing this since 2017.
Yeah. We literally did a podcast on this, on the tax plan.
We shat all over Paul Ryan and all of the other Republicans who, thumbed their nose at Donald Trump until he was the nominee and then suddenly took to kissing the ring. We went to town on them.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so, America, you are now experiencing what we warned you about. So when you file your taxes next year and you get $300 when you normally got $3,000, or when you find yourself having to pay a bill and not knowing why, thank President Trump. And, globally in 2020, the workers lost $3.9 trillion. Billionaires expanded their wealth by $3.7 trillion.
That's insane. That's fucking insane.
So, literally, all of the money that all these people lost in foreclosure, their jobs, credit card debt, all these different things, directly handed to people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson. Fuck every single one of those motherfuckers. Tax the shit out of them. Tax them to hell and back. President Eisenhower oversaw a 90% tax rate over the wealthiest Americans on certain things. I'm not saying that they literally get taxed on like 90% of what they have.
There's different
But
sectors to this thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is where conservatives like to go, oh no, but it wasn't 90%, because I don't have the time to explain all the fucking marginal IRS tax code as to where it applied as 90%.
Right.
Fuck you, Andy No, and Ben Shapiro, and all of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's wealth disparity is worse than it was during the Gilded Age, and the Gilded Age caused the Great Depression. People are poorer, sicker, hungrier, and worse off than they have ever been in the last 130 years. You have to go back to like the late 19th, turn of the century, when everyone was, dying from coal soot, and people were 30 and looked 80 because they just lived so hard and everyone was so poor and so hungry, and America was still kind of an emerging country.
Yeah.
So we have the wherewithal. We are one of the wealthiest nations in the world. We have the wherewithal to care for our people. And when we're going to be this wealthy and allow people to exist who can engage in such opulence and such like don't give a fuckery, we owe it to the least among us to do better and to guarantee things like healthcare as a human right, because the whole fucking world does it besides us.
Right. Richard Sherman. I know you just got the news, only now started following news on that, but I wanted to talk to you about it a little bit because of the mental health aspect. That's something that you're very well familiar with.
Mental health.
The story is still very green. I don't know, the story's really green because like you hear he got arrested, and you obviously everybody on social media thinks, okay, worst case scenario. Okay, they always think the worst case out the gate. Well, he did something wrong. Obviously, burglary. Oh yeah, he's going to jail.
Oh, he must have did something. Why didn't he comply? They wouldn't have arrested him if he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. Then now it's coming out that if you watch it on YouTube, you'll this is hysterical. No. And then of course you start to hear the stories about his wife called the cops because he's threatened to kill himself, and obviously everybody knows Richard Sherman's history. He's had situations with mental health and all that. Has been a big advocate for that. And I don't know. Like I guess for me personally, I just want to wait and see where this thing goes before I start judging it, because he hasn't even been charged with anything yet.
Yeah, I don't. My instinct reading, so right as when we were doing the pre-show, I was kind of skimming the ESPN story and the Seattle Times. I think it's the Seattle Times story.
That sounds right.
Something local in Seattle, and there's very few facts available. There's very, very, very few facts available. There was an incident. He threatened to kill himself. He was very clearly in distress. There was mention of his father-in-law having pepper sprayed him, and he was taken into custody after attempting to flee police. And as you noted, had a canine unit sicked on him, which is something I want animals out of horses and dogs both out of policing altogether. It's
right.
What happens to horses and dogs?
I've never been comfortable with that. I mean, I understand dogs to some extent. If you're doing a search and trying to find drugs somewhere, and
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with sniffing dogs, but attack dogs are not necessary.
Right.
And particularly when you go back again to looking at the struggle for civil rights and in the South and the things that dogs have been used for since slave patrols and up through the civil rights movement and
right.
Today, it's really fucking heinous.
Right.
Oh, yeah. What I see is a situation, unfortunately, that I'm all too familiar with, because while there are very few specific facts to Richard's case. Richard Sherman's case. I'm not going to talk about him like I know him.
Right.
There's very few available facts about the specifics of this case, but what I see is a story that I've read 100 different times here in LA about people who were suffering a mental health crisis and were killed by police. Whether it was Daniel Hernandez or Alex Flores or Marco Vasquez Jr., all these names, Vanessa Marquez, who had medical and mental health issues. You know, the only reason that he's not going to be talked about on a Say His Name podcast now is because he's famous and the cops knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
If he was just another black guy in Seattle, they probably would have shot his ass.
And ask questions later, of course.
Yeah, of course. And so my overarching feeling about this is, like, my big question is, why are we hearing from cops and not doctors? Like, I mean, personally, I don't want to hear about this story at all until it's Richard saying, I went through this thing and I'm ready to tell my story and share and create a safe space for people who may be experiencing this so that they don't feel alone, because I want to use my platform effectively.
Right.
That, like, all these people around him dealing with the situation are the ones doing the talking. But that being what it is, and us not being able to do anything about the voyeuristic society that we live in, I come back to, why are we hearing from cops and not doctors? Why did he go to jail and not the hospital? Why, why are we talking about criminal charges and not wishing him and his family privacy, respect, and health as he goes off to a rehab facility to get his mind right?
Right.
Those are the questions I have. So I hope that whatever his family is experiencing, they can sort this out, and that he finds peace in whatever is afflicting him, and that as quickly as humanly possible, the gears of the Seattle justice system come to a screeching halt as it pertains to one Richard Sherman, and that he can focus on getting healthy and being able to do whatever the hell he wants to do with his life, because he's done a lot of good.
Yeah.
And he's earned it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I wish him the best. I wish his family the best. My sincerest sympathies for what they're experiencing, and fuck Seattle PD for not having better, or a King County sheriff or whoever the hell it was, for not having the resources in place that could have prevented him from getting arrested and could have facilitated him getting what he needs. And God knows how many people experienced exactly what Richard Sherman went through and weren't so lucky. They were killed, they were arrested, they were charged, they were beaten, they were tased, they were pepper sprayed, that we've never heard of, because they weren't famous, because they didn't win Super Bowls for the Seahawks and, whatever.
Right.
Because I know there's about 500 of them, just
right.
that I could, off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
That's
yeah. Last one, let you go. Last topic. Have you been following the Britney Spears conservatorship war? You want to call that? It's a war now.
Yeah, it's really gross.
It really is.
It's really, really gross.
And can I just say real quick, this for the record, as someone, I'm proud of myself here, because I wasn't one of those morons back in 2008, 2007 when she was going through her struggles, piling on and making fun of her. I knew there was an issue, there was a problem even back then. I didn't pile on.
Yeah, so, I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh a little at stuff, but it was very apparent to me that, like, yeah, there was something serious occurring in this woman's life.
Right.
And, we were really shitty to Britney for a really long time. We as America, right. The world.
That's you guys. Fuck y'all. I do shit. Hell no, man.
Where were you with the Free Britney hashtag in 2011?
I didn't do Free Britney hashtag, but I didn't pile on, dog. I didn't pile on. No, I will say this much. I've always, dude, Mark, this is so weird for me. I've always had a soft spot for two people, especially. I'm going to shock you. Britney Spears being one. The other one is Lindsay Lohan. I don't get it. I always had a soft spot for them.
I think that's really reasonable, because the more you learn about what a meat grinder the entertainment industry really is for children,
disgusting.
It's pedophilia and I mean, outright human trafficking in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
People like Ed Buck, the Democratic guy who had his fingers all in Hollywood, who's now on trial in Los Angeles. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, okay. I had a feeling you may have, but yeah, so for those who don't know, Ed Buck is a longtime wealthy man about town in Los Angeles, intertwined in, I forget what his specific trade that made him wealthy and connected was, whether it was in entertainment or politics or whatever. But for the purposes of this conversation, he's very well connected in entertainment and politics. You'll find a lot of pictures of him with the Clintons and with other famous people and shit like that, right?
He is being
Well,
held up bond, awaiting arraignment. Wait, is it the same? Yeah, Democratic political fundraiser. He's
yep.
okay. Let me see. He's charged with.
Numerous black men have ended up dead in his apartment while doing drugs. And it's believed that he's like kidnapped, abused, tortured.
Yeah. So he has one,
It
two.
wouldn't be a leap if he's convicted of all the things he's accused of. It would not be a leap to call this man a serial killer.
Okay, so there's a reading here. He has 4 charges, 3 state charges for a drug house, battery causing serious injury, and administering methamphetamine. Fuck, I can't say it properly now.
Methamphetamine.
Methamphetamine. Thank you. And then a federal charge of methamphetamine resulting in death. He's also gay.
Numerous black men have ended up dead when hanging out with Ed Buck. And people had been screaming about him for years. And it's one of those like R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein things where it's like if you were in the community, you knew about that guy a long time ago.
It was enclosed to one area and you didn't get out until it got out. No, he was also. Yeah, go ahead.
The people who were complaining were poor black folks' family of poor black drug addicts. Talking about, a very wealthy, powerful, connected man, even within the liberal side of things.
Right.
So who's just like the grim sleeper, who's going to care about a bunch of missing black women in South Central? Who's going to care about black queers that turn up dead in this man's apartment? They were
exactly. I got to just paint them as they were doing drugs anyway.
Yeah.
No, back to Britney real quick though. Because as far as I know, she's not actually asking to end the conservatorship. What she's asking is for her father to be removed as in charge of it. Although maybe that's changed now. Maybe that's changed now, but months ago that was the case.
I think my guess, based on what I've read and not having read like court documents, just read stories about court documents, is that was probably just a legal tactic to be able to claw back something that resembles personal autonomy and self-determination, but that, ultimately she wants her money and her life, her children and her body to be her own. And the thing that really breaks my heart is like, it was weird. So my ex was really into Britney Spears from the time she was a kid. She was that age when Britney blew up when she was like 12. Okay. So she would, like I had taken her to see Britney in Vegas for her birthday one year. So we would be like, just sitting around on the couch, like looking at our phones, doing whatever. And she'd show me, like, she'd be like, babe, look at this. Look at Britney's Instagram. Like, look at this post. This is weird, isn't it? Like, and I would look at these things and be like, she's not healthy. This all feels wrong. Like everything about it feels really wrong. And then you get into the comments and you see all these people who are like diehard Britney fans that understand what's going on, going like, Britney, are you okay? Free Britney, blah, blah, blah. And then you find out that like millions of people were in fact correct, and this woman is being held hostage, held captive. The woman can't get an IUD.
This woman cannot get an IUD taken out because her father doesn't want her to. She can't have kids because her father's telling her not to.
In California, where we supposedly have all these reproductive rights protections,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, man, it's wild. I think we've talked about this in the past, sort of like the arc of history is kind of like a metronome, and while it bends towards progress, power swings back and forth.
Of course.
And I think we're just one of those times where, like in the tug of war between the oppressed and the oppressor, the oppressor's winning. they've got the upper hand. And people need to stand up and fight back because they're only getting richer, more entrenched, more control, and more of us. Like, this is the first generation that is gonna experience a negative life expectancy and
Well,
quality.
she won a big legal battle this yesterday, being able to have her own lawyer now.
I didn't catch that. Okay, so she is able to have outside counsel advocate for her apart from the conservatorship.
Right. That's correct.
Oh, I think that's gonna be a game changer. That actually explains a lot because I was downtown LA yesterday near the courthouse and I saw now that I've seen this stuff, I know the difference of when it's like a family protesting the police or doing something. It's just a few local media people, whatever. This was like international press. The whole block was nothing but press trucks out in front of the LA Superior Court, and I was like. I even asked my friends that I met up with yesterday, I was like, hey, is there a Britney Spears thing going on today? Like, does she have court today? And they're like, why do you ask? And I'm like, because there's local media, national media, and paparazzi all over the courthouse right now.
So not only did she get that, she actually asked the judge to file formal charges against her father.
Are these civil charges or criminal charges?
No, I guess criminal.
So wait. She's asking that that her father be criminally investigated for his management of this conservatorship.
Correct.
And his behavior throughout the course of this conservatorship.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, girl.
She literally said that. She literally
Get
said that.
his ass. Like.
Yeah. This whole thing is so. Yeah, this thing is all. It's crazy. Yeah, it says Britney Spears says she wants to charge dad with quote conservatorship abuse. Yep. Even Fox News says that it's freedom is in sight. Yeah.
Wow.
Game changer. Yeah, that is a game changer.
Wow.
I don't know. Hopefully things work out for her, man. She's 40 years old. She's able to do her own thing now. Come on, let her.
I mean, she
seems to be a better place now than she was.
We all do dumb shit on a regular basis.
Of course.
We continue to do dumb shit as we grow. We cause harm. We try to do our best and make it better and be accountable. Those of us that are capable of accountability.
Right.
Yeah, tongue in cheek. But like the fact that she has millions of dollars or that she's a public person, a celebrity, a performer, shouldn't in any way, shape, or form take away from her personal autonomy, her ability, bodily autonomy, financial autonomy, the right to do whatever the fuck she wants. She wants to sit around and smoke blunts all day and piss through her money. That's her choice. She wants to have 14 more kids.
That's her choice.
It's her choice. And if she starts to, 40-year-old woman, there's no reason that she needs a 70-year-old man or a 60-whatever-year-old man, dictating what she does. If she runs afoul of the law or Department of Family Services or
that's
family
her bag.
Court, whatever, those consequences will come and she'll deal with that. But it needs to be her journey to explore. The fact that he has all these constraints on her is just it's. I
will defend one thing about the conservatorship. It could be argued, and I said this on the podcast months ago when the story came out, when back in February when the documentary on New York Times about the whole thing came out. It could be argued that the conservatorship initially did save her life and career. Initially. Now this is also 13 years ago, Mark.
I'm hearing Alec Guinness's voice in the back of my head going, well, that depends on one's point of view. I mean to say okay, well, what is your definition? How do you define success and what are you protecting?
Well, there was clearly people in her life prior to the conservatorship being applied that had nothing but bad intentions.
Okay, so she had a toxic relationship with Kevin Federline and 2 babies that her parents didn't approve of. Let's just, call it.
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about Sam Lufty, the other guy. The
thing after that, yeah.
Right.
But it's like, okay, so what? So she had bad relationships. Like, if my parents could have filed legal conservatorship on me for every girl I ever brought home that they didn't like, I'd have been locked up at 22.
You probably should have. No, I'm joking.
You ain't right, but you ain't wrong.
Oh damn! There you go. When you put it that way, shit. No, I'm with you. Like I'm sure there's details we don't know, but at the end of the day, the way I look at it is this: she's a 40-year-old woman, okay, with kids. Let her live. She obviously knows what she's doing now. She's in a better place now, man. So you can see it. Let her live, dude. Bottom line.
Hashtag free Britney all day.
Let's go. I think she'll win it. I think she'll get it this time.
I'd be very, especially, everything is Hollywood in Hollywood, whether it's the cops, the activists, the judges, the engineers, the construction people. Like, everybody's a little Hollywood in LA. And where I'm going with that is to say that this judge, it's not going to be lost on this judge exactly how many people are paying attention to this, and that their clerks aren't checking Instagram as much as they're checking law libraries. You
Right.
know, like, it's just how it rolls here in LA. And, when celebrities come through court. And so I'd be very, very surprised if the combination of her having counsel that doesn't have some kind of fiduciary responsibility to her dad or the conservatorship, I'd be pretty surprised if this conservatorship lasts a whole lot longer.
Right. Anyway, Mark, it was fun. 6 months
Yeah, I got
later.
a couple things I got to plug.
Go ahead.
So I need everybody to don't even worry about me on Instagram or Twitter. You need to follow HAC_US. That's the Haitian American Caucus on Instagram. I need you to follow us. I need you to get in touch with us and learn how you can help us. We've got a number of different initiatives going. I know you saw, I was telling you I was in Miami for Haitian Flag Day back in May. We were able to raise about a little under $15,000. We're going to be putting that money to work, doing a buzzathon with BuzzBox and Buzz It Forward, the organization that we work, the company that we work with, and their charitable division, to do a back-to-school buzzathon to provide kids with haircuts in Little Haiti. That's coming up in Miami on August 20th and 21st. So I invite you to check out BuzzBox and HAC for everything we're doing in Haiti and for the diaspora domestically. And then also, I need everyone to check out Say Their Names LA on Instagram. Learn more about what's happening in Los Angeles and what we're doing for families here who have been victims of police violence, the truth behind police violence, the degree to which police control the narrative, continue to harass and suppress accountability and justice for these families. And while you may not live in Los Angeles or have an emotional connection to Los Angeles, I venture to guess that wherever you live, it's not going to take you very long to find stories in your town that mirror the stories that we try to highlight at Say Their Names LA.
Right.
And I venture to guess that if, as you start to learn these stories and who these people were as people, not in the minutes that or hours that led up to their death, when you learn who the whole person was, you're going to find out that it may not be as cut and dry as the police try to say that it was, and it wasn't as clean a shoot as they might say it is. And so I encourage everyone out there to take action, to hold these police accountable, make them release the names of the cops that kill your neighbors, end qualified immunity, create real accountability for citizens, and it might just save one of your loved ones. Emmett Till's aunt babysat George Floyd. George Floyd's girlfriend taught Dante Wright, I believe, in school.
Is this real?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. Like, these things are, like, that's how connected this shit is. I forget what it was. I've seen a couple different memes about it, but it was something like, yeah, George Floyd's aunt, or George Floyd was babysat by Emmett Till's aunt, or something like that, or cousin. And then his girlfriend taught Dante Wright in school or something like. Yeah, I mean, there. I forget what the exact connection is, but between Philando Castile, Laniel Frazier, George Floyd, Emmett Till, and Dante Wright, they're all interconnected.
That's
And
interesting.
so that just goes to show you how small and continuous it all
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So
All right.
there's one other thing that is just for you, and I have to plug for the listeners. I've talked in the past about Mike
Me?
Duncan's.
For
Yeah,
me?
this is for you, and as well as for the listeners. But I've talked in the past about Mike Duncan's podcast, Revolutions. If you want to understand the history of the West, I invite everyone to go listen to his series on Haiti to give you the complete and comprehensive history of old Haiti. But Behind the Bastards by Robert Evans on iHeartMedia. I don't know Robert. I wish I did. I don't work for iHeartMedia, but I am plugging this podcast, Behind the Bastards. It's the stories you haven't heard about all of history's worst people, and you'll learn stories of people like Phyllis Schlafly, who you may not understand exactly how influential they were, but yes, that is
Yeah. Yep.
it.
No. I
She has
think
a whole special mini series within Behind the Bastards called Behind the Police that is the complete comprehensive history of policing in America.
it's very possible they may have actually had a clip run on my show, because where this podcast is actually housed, iHeart is like one of the major affiliates, and when I put ads on my show, I might have heard one of the ads for
For this,
the show.
like
Right. That's
iHeart
why.
advertising.
That's why when you said I mentioned it, I said I've heard it before, but I don't remember where I heard it from.
There you go.
I'm thinking it might be
No,
one of the ads when play back to the show.
is one that does the one thing that it illustrates better than anything else I've ever seen is sort of the throughout history, whether you're talking about King Leopold or slavers in America or people like George Lincoln Rockwell, Hitler, all of this oppression is the same. It never changes. It changes clothes, but the demon is always the demon.
Right.
And the other thing I would invite everyone to watch in conjunction with Behind the Bastards is a series on HBO, a 4-part documentary called Exterminate All the Brutes, made by a Haitian American filmmaker. And you'll actually see my uncle, fun fact, in episode 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the filmmaker is Haitian American, was living in Haiti the same time my family was, and in the beginning of the second episode, he tells an anecdote about when he was in kindergarten, and he shows a photograph of his kindergarten class photo, and my dad's baby brother is right there front and center. And I was like, I was watching the thing, I was like, holy shit, is that can't be. So I pause it, and I'm just sitting there staring at the screen like a German Shepherd. Like, and then so I take a picture of it and I send it to my uncles, a couple of my cousins, and my mom. And my mom was the first one to text back. She's like, "Oh, that's Bruno, 100%. Like, no question, that's Bruno." And then he confirmed it like 15 minutes later. But yes, so Behind the Bastards, iHeartMedia podcast. Robert Evans somehow makes baby murder, human trafficking, and genocide entertaining and, dare I say, funny at times. And Exterminate All the Brutes, 4-part documentary series on HBO. It really helps to help illustrate the through lines, connections, and interconnectivity of the extermination of indigenous people all over the world, whether that's Canada, Australia, Africa, North America, the United States, chattel slavery, indigenous extermination and erasure, Aboriginal erasure, the conquest of Africa, the establishment of Rhodesia, all these different things, they're all the same. All the same tactics were put to use by all these different forces. And, capitalism was born in the Renaissance. It went corporate as it entered the colonial period, and it became fortified during the Industrial Revolution. And yeah, it's really scary how little has changed from the 12th century.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mark, it was fun.
It's fun.
6 months later, man.
You're all over the damn map today.
Huh?
I say we were all over the damn map today.
But when are we not though? Honestly, yeah, we're pretty much in the same boat. So, all right, buddy. We'll talk soon. Great job.
Hopefully,
And by the way,
hopefully
first
in less than 6 months.
no. We'll be way sooner than that. Probably next couple of weeks, most likely.
I'm with that.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll talk soon. And
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. All right, buddy. Take it easy. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate
You got
it.
it, man. Take care, bud.